Out of the Tunnel's Mouth, I would have said probably more of an maybe a deeper album than Beyond the Shrouded Horizon, in the sense that I know the Beyond the Shrouded Horizon, well, I think we said on the phone, is perhaps more of a travel log in many ways.
Sure.
Was that a deliberate thing, or?
Well, I think if you're talking about both albums, I suspect the Out of the Tunnel's Mouth was an aspect of the inner journey and the inner turmoil of things surrounding that album. I was very pleased with the way it sounded, but I did it at home in the living room, a little bit bigger than this, but not much bigger than this room, and it was a case of adversity producing that kind of result. By comparison, the other one, although some of it was done literally at home in the living room, it was much more of a kind of studio based project. So it went around the houses a bit. It'd taken about 3 or 4 years to put together, and we had to make sure that the rights were really intact for that, so that there were no challenges, as there had been to Out of the Tunnel's Mouth. But went through a court case, all of that, and out the other side, and very pleased with both of the albums.
I don't want to go into personal issues, Steve, but obviously it would have an effect on the music. I think I've picked that up in some of the lyrics.
It did, yeah. I think with tracks like Fire on the Moon, there was a lot of personal experience in there. I mean, I think people think a lot of the time that anything associated with Genesis, there's a lot of sort of reference and source material that's not necessarily personal, but whether it's social comment or historical, a lot of, particularly the early Genesis stuff, tended to be quite bookish. Whereas I thought, well, actually, I'm going through my own personal odyssey with this, and I don't really need to refer quite so much to, the heroes of old. There's something of trying to survive, the perils of the modern world, and as I say, I was thrilled with the result of Out the Tunnel's Mouth. I mean, for an album that was done at home, you wouldn't know that. A lot of people say, "Oh, it sounds huge." You must have a very big living room, but the studio is really the size of your imagination these days. It's something that Stephen Wilson says. I know a Porcupine Tree. When we have conversations, he talks about his studio being this size, the size of a computer screen, and instruments fit around that. So, the old idea of having to move all this equipment into a space where you record it and try and capture the space. That's one way of doing it, but I guess it's the oral equivalent of CGI these days. The computer rules, really.
I think we actually summed it up in the review, or I did, as a Twickenham triumph. So
Twickenham, yes, another triumph. Twickenham, home of British rugby and rock and roll, of course.
That's it. We better say English rugby, hadn't we? I suppose.
Yes. English rugby.
That's it. As we approach the Six Nations, Steve, as we approach the tour starting February the 12th in Farnham, that sounds very... Farnham, the Mailings,
yeah.
That sounds very homely, doesn't it?
It does. Well, I think, with his Genesis references, I think they actually rehearsed there before I joined.
Oh, really?
Them. I think it was Farnham.
Yeah.
The Maltings.
Oh, the Maltings. So I'm reading this right. I haven't got my
But I think in those days, I've got a feeling that the place was in need of renovation. So I think you took your chances with the pigeons and the rafters.
I've never been there, so I can't.
But these days, no, it's a bespoke venue and a very nice one.
Yeah. So you're touring actually for most of February from Farnham, the Maltings, he says, and to Norwich University of East Anglia on the 27th, and all dates in between. So you've got England, Scotland. Have we got Wales? No
Welsh dates, unfortunately, at the moment. But,
right. Okay. But
we hope to phase that in. I miss doing Wales. I'd like to, but it doesn't always doesn't work out every time. But
no, but there are lots
life
of
is long.
There are lots of venues like my own patch, which is New Brighton Floral Pavilion, where Welsh people can come across and see you there.
Right.
So we, if they're Steve Hackett fans, they can come and travel. Yeah.
Well, I'm amazed these days the amount that people do travel. Because I think my early days of going to see other people's gigs. If it wasn't down the road or on the tube or the underground, I didn't bother. You could walk to most of the gigs that I went to in those days, but of course, we've got a much more mobile population. I mean, I didn't get a car till I was 35, so I was a late starter with driving. So
really, I think we've had this conversation before, not about gigs, but I think it was last time it was record shops, wasn't it?
Record shops.
Yeah, you could walk to your local record shop. Now you have to get the bus or car or something, if there is one, But
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read a very interesting book called Last Record Shop Standing.
That's right. Yeah.
Which yes, I mean it's sad, isn't it? That, what happens is someone tells you about some great act that you should own an album of, and then you send off for it. There's no spontaneous music acquisition anymore, is there?
No, that's it.
It doesn't work out like that.
No.
Unless you happen to live within a stone's throw of Oxford Street or in London, or as you say, you're local.
That's it. As far as travelling is concerned, Steve, off air we were talking about Italy and some of the European dates, which we'd love to come and see. That would be good. We'd combine it with a weekend away and that.
Well, yes.
It must be great for you to be doing these great venues and countries.
Italy has been a great support for me over the years.
Yes.
In a way, that was the first country that we were able to tour as Genesis all those years ago. For some reason, they'd embraced the band. Other places we might be doing clubs, but we were doing stadiums there. And why the Italians embraced it to that degree, I don't know. If it's something to do with the sort of the kind of operetta value of those early tunes, maybe it was that. Maybe there was a bit of bel canto going on. Maybe it was more belted than bel canto. But something about the early subtle energy of Genesis rang the bells for that. With the Italians, and I suspect something about the Latin market and all over the world. There seems to be that. I don't know quite why that is. Why we would be able to perform so regularly to so many Catholics, but there you go. It's been like that for quite some time. So not just there, but also Spain and Portugal and South America, where in the main the Protestant work ethic doesn't exist. If you ain't Catholic, it's.
Yeah, but of course you're touring around much more than you were. I mean, certainly in the UK, we were talking about. I think off air we were talking about '93. You were promoting Guitar Noir. And was it the gigs in UK were few and far between, weren't they? But now it's great that you've got these more dates.
I think it's also to do with the fact that because I'm involved with the management, with my wife Jo and Roger King, Brian Coles, there's a team of us, and we make the decisions about when we want to go out. And I love touring, so I don't have to rely on someone else to tell me that's desirable, possible, economically viable. All of that. I don't have to really do that. This small team that also makes the music, and we all multitask. Wear a lot of different hats. Or wigs. No, it's real.
It is real.
It's real.
Okay,
it's real. But the important thing is you if you want a gig, you can. But I think that you think about management. You think of Elvis. Why did Elvis never do England? Probably because he had a manager who had a vested interest in not doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that
Colonel Tom
said to Elvis, "Hey, a lot of English fans would like to see you. They do great burgers there too." He would have said, "I'll be there."
Yeah. but he didn't get that opportunity. But
he didn't get that opportunity, no. And also, I think, looking at trying to be serious for a minute, you notice with those films of Elvis that after shows he liked to sing gospel tunes. Yeah. Now, why didn't he make a gospel album if that was okay? If his heart was in that, and I suspect again it would have been someone else's view of what he should have been. So I think you've got to fight quite hard, whatever level you're at in the business, to make sure that you are really giving them the real you, because there are an awful lot of experts that will tell you otherwise. Yeah,
what you should be doing. I suppose it's quite cathartic in a way to be able to be in full control.
Oh, it is. It means that I'm much more accessible, and so is the band. We do shows. I always sign memorabilia after the show, whether it's albums or whether it's a photo with Auntie Doris. We do it. It's just whatever you like. I had to come out and engage with the people that have kept me going all these years.
Sure. And it's been quite a few years now, Steve, and I suppose it's gone quite quickly in a sense, hasn't it? I mean,
yes. One lifetime of music is it's far too short. One lifetime of music, isn't it? Really?
I was talking to Rod Argent and Russ Ballard behind the scenes, and they were saying that you actually don't appreciate when you're younger, when you're writing these songs and people identify with these songs, how important they are to people. A, and B, you appreciate them more now than you did then. Yeah. Do you find that yourself?
Well, yes. I mean, I had my heroes too, and people that I listened to when, in a sense, it's the music that's the emotional calendar. There's so much love surrounding those songs that you listen to with friends at the time, but then sometimes those friends desert you or they go other ways, but those songs are still there. So in a sense, it locks you into that time, and it's terribly important, because when you suddenly see an artist performing that again, you say, well, that's brought home everything to me. That's the portal to the past, sure. And I get as affected emotionally by that as anybody. I mean, I remember seeing Buffy St. Marie some years ago at Hammersmith, and she started to sing certain songs that I'd known since the mid-'60s or even the early '60s. I thought, oh my God, it doesn't, in a sense, it doesn't matter how that song is done. The performer on stage has the pressure of being everyone else's night out, so they try and do it as perfectly as they can, and there are always externals that change that, the odd bit of feedback, the odd bit of that. But what's unassailable is the emotional impact that song had on you at that time, and then suddenly, in the past 40 years goes, and you're back in either the 50s, the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever era it was, or whatever decade defined your soundtrack, and it's invariably sometime when you were a teenager or your early 20s at most. Those songs are always going to mean more to you then. They're a lifeline.
I have a confession to make. We actually we visited a caravan in Wales, and we actually played Spectral Mornings from. And we all had different musical tastes. There's three or four of us on a holiday, 4 lads, and we actually played Spectral Mornings from beginning to end, all the way through. And there were people into Motown, but that was the album for the holiday. It was incredible. Right. So it's the kind of thing you're talking about.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. I have a fondness for that album, because I remember the circumstances surrounding it. It was a bunch of guys. We were all friends. We were in Holland. It was 15 degrees below zero. It was a frozen lake that we walked on. We couldn't get any sleep at night because they'd start making up the rooms at 6 in the morning. Unfortunately, we were working till about 3 in the morning. Most nights we were just partying into the night and making an album at the same time. And then you get back and you get about 2 hours sleep, and then up the next day doing the thing again. But nonetheless, it was a very happy period for me. It was my first touring band, and they all contributed hugely to that album. You know, their personalities meant a lot.
Yeah, it's certainly stood the test of time, hasn't it? So
it has.
I know others have, but that one
Yeah.
has, particularly with
I'm
Clocks and.
I'm very fond of that. Yeah, Clocks was really something devised as a stage number.
Yeah.
Some of the other ones were. I didn't know they'd come out as strong as they did, like Every Day.
Yes.
I had no idea that would come out as strongly as it did because of the vocal sound, mainly. I mean, I figured that we'd get the guitar sounding right, but you know, a vocal sound of that time, the 3-part harmonies, and Virgin and the Gypsy.
Yes.
Not to mention the Oriental bit using the koto.
Of course,
and that. So I think of those as all, you know, the more lyrical moments of that album, and then there were other bits, Spectral Mornings itself, and some Spanish influence with Lost Time in Cordoba.
Yeah, it was quite a varied album, wasn't it?
Some guitar synth, and it's quite short, you know, compared to albums these days. At that time, you were advised by people who cut discs to plastic that 18 minutes a side was optimum for getting bass response. So, you know, if you wanted more bass, it cut deeper grooves into the vinyl. But it was a lot of fun to make that album. Even though halfway through the mixing, back in England from Holland, I started to get dizzy spells, not quite enough sleep, too much partying, and they were sending me back mixes, and I was listening to them on the couch, flat out there. Yeah, a bit more tambourine on the third verse, and I was literally sort of, I was flat out, but I thought, it's not going to do to me what Please Don't Touch did. Please Don't Touch put me in hospital.
Really?
But funny, isn't it? I was in hospital halfway through that, but Spectral Mornings, oh God, here it comes again. You know, I'm just. I've put too much into it, and I didn't learn in those days that. I thought if you're enthusiastic, you play all night, because you know, you might not get back on that high again. You know, I always thought when the tapes are running and it's going well, I would keep going. I wouldn't do that now. I wouldn't survive it. You know, with time you learn to pace yourself. I was thinking, no, I don't work after, you know, 7:30 at night. I'm probably at the most. You go to 8 o'clock, and you get the what the band used to call an earworm. It keeps burrowing away. You know, you keep hearing the songs going round. You need that wind down time. You need a bit of civilian life to kick in. A bit of something on the box, something to wipe the.
But I suppose when you're younger, you don't get that, do you? I suppose you don't quite get it. You think everything's being about the music. And
I mean, funny enough, with Genesis, we used to rehearse, and come 6 o'clock, everyone down tools, and that was it. But you know, what I didn't realise at the time was that they all had separate lives. You know, most of them had regular girlfriends or wives, and at that time I didn't. I thought 6 o'clock. Why? You know, why's everyone? You know, this is crazy. They all wanted to get early in the morning and then finish at 6, almost like ABBA. You know, ABBA hours were 9 to 5, so one gathers, and Genesis hours were usually shoot for 10, end up with 11, but home at 6. Apart from recording, of course, that's rehearsal times. But heady days.
Heady days, yes. We're still here. The heady days are still here, certainly for fans. I mean, I think for you know, so much going on. There's also, you mentioned. Can we mention it about Squack? Well, we can mention Squackett.
Squackett. I like it better with your accent.
Yeah, Squackett. Yeah. And then who else? And we've got the tour that possibly might take place. But can we mention that or not?
With Squackett or with Well. It's the following. Chris Squire and I have made an album. Chris of Yes, of bass playing fame, and we think it'll be out in May if we manage to come up with an album sleeve that meets everyone's approval this side of the Atlantic and over the other side. I'm hoping there'll be gigs, but nothing's guaranteed because Yes is a very busy band, and so am I, and we might do some shows together, but it's by no means certain because it's, you know, it's a number crunching exercise. It's all got to stack up, and I hate to say that, but you know, it's a fact of business. If you take a 6-piece, you know, band to the States, you can lose billions.
Lots of billions between friends. You know, I mean,
liras.
Liras, yeah. If it's liras, it won't be so bad, would it? Yeah. Okay, so and on the recording front, Steve, you obviously need to promote this one some more as well, Beyond the Shrouded Horizon.
Yeah, that's the current album.
Yeah. Anything else on the horizon?
Yeah, I've been working on. I've been re-recording some Genesis things. I've just started doing that. Sometime during the 90s, I did an album called Genesis Revisited, which had a number of friends who were in bands that were at least as well known as Genesis, and luckily it meant that tribute to Genesis, or you know, to the past that we shared, I think it was elevated by the input of people like Chester Thompson and various members of King Crimson and other bands. Yeah, you know, so it was really, I was very lucky to have a great team working on that, but I'm wearing my other hat as a recruiting officer for this second leg of Revisited, and some very interesting suggestions have been put forward by various people. You know, you think, oh, I don't know if I get so-and-so, but maybe I get someone else, and people are saying, oh, you know, why don't you use, you know, and it's very interesting. So it depends on their availability,
of course,
and I hope that'll be out in the autumn. Recording is going quite fast, which is great, and it promises to be really good. I'm very much enjoying the process. I'm loving getting the 12-string out again and going through all those parts, you know, breaking them down and then seeing what new things can be brought to it. But I'm falling in love with the sound of the 12-string all over again. I was dreaming about it the other night, having done one or two things and thinking, oh, it's a beautiful instrument. Unwieldy though, because with some of the parts, because I'm very picky, I ended up retuning practically for every chord change. You know, I think, oh, I'm doing it very high here, but the tuning, of course, let's get all those, you know, strings together. The 12 strings is an awful lot if you tune it for every chord, but if you're on the top 4 strings, it's a mere 8 strings you've got to get right, and then it's beautiful. It's worth it.
Will you be previewing any of those on the forthcoming tour?
I'm not. Well, funnily enough, there might be the odd one. I am doing some Genesis stuff on the tour. Yeah. We are doing Watcher of the Skies. We are doing not Musical Box, although I'm recording that. We're doing. Can't remember. Can't remember now. Carpet Crawlers. Fly on a Windshield. Various favourites. Blood on the Rooftops, which I know I've done before, but all of those songs, even though they were probably done quite a lot in their day, because they're such classics or regarded with such affection by many, it's great. It never feels like that's an imposition to do that. I don't mind doing that, no matter how many times I play Los Endos. I think, well, no, that's all right. That's a melody that was a doodle of mine back then in '76, and but somehow it still goes off like a rocket now. So
always,
you know, you can't knock that if it's, you say a great tune's a great tune, but also a great riff can work. And it's a band that makes those things work. You see,
absolutely. And
really,
Gary O'Toole's great on that, isn't he?
Yes, he is great on it.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
I was thinking that originally when I had a doodle on 12 string and the idea of fading in guitars and making it all quite wafty like the beginning of it, Phil suggested the rhythm for it, and the punctuation of that was bang on. That's a bit like big band meets rock, meets Latin, meets various things. People were saying at the time when we did that, you guys sound like Santana these days.
Oh, that's right.
Probably just because Phil had overdubbed some bongos on the thing. Suddenly, as soon as you got percussion, it's
starting to double time it, wasn't it? They are.
Yes,
Anyway, Steve, it's been great talking to you, and I think obviously we'll be looking forward to. Well, my leg of the tour will be Flora Pavilion on the. Let's get a plug in, should we? On the 20th of February. But you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 9, 15 dates, I think. I'm scan reading this.
Yeah, well, it's
so people can.
It's a busy time, and but I love doing 14. It. I do love touring, so I don't count them. I just think being on tour, there's nothing quite like it. It's it is a great feeling, and still a privilege to do that.
Will Live Rails be available at all? Because we had difficulties last time getting hold of it. Live Rails, the live album.
I think it will. Yes, I'm just getting the nod from Joe, who's saying it will be.
Yeah,
and so we'll be pressing up some more. I think the thing is, when you take albums on the road, sometimes they sell out.
Yeah,
and
which is great.
It's easy to underestimate the effect of that. But that as a live album was very well received. I was thrilled with the way that went.
Yeah. And
also Fire and Ice, which was the show we were doing previously. Which we have as available as DVD and mixed in 5.1.
Yeah.
I know not so many people have 5.1 systems, but there'll be a friend of a friend who does, and it's worth checking out because that feeling of being enveloped in sound, I think it's well worth checking out. Certain songs.
Sure. Yeah. We'll look forward to hearing that and seeing it, because I haven't heard Live Rails yet, so I need to get hold of a copy. But I'll no, not
we'll
at all.
That for you.
No, that's fine, because obviously the DVD as well, and whatever else we can help with here at Get Ready to Rock. And thank you, Steve. I'm looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks anyway.